Painting a basement, and not just any basement, a man cave. Man caves require specific skill and apparently specific color. White. Stark white. The color wheel, according to Home Depot, is oddly specific. They have eggshell, ivory, feather, and snowfall. These colors are variations on white, but with a small amount of color additive that will mask any flaws in the base. However, my husband unearthed white. Actual white, with no additive. It will allow no flaws to be overlooked. The first step is to evaluate the area that's being painted. It's important to check for nicks, dents, or holes in the drywall. Flaws like these can disrupt the even flow of paint, and on stark white walls will cause shadows. This kind of mark will be magnified against an all-white background. Do a walk around of the entire room. Check for any imperfections. Bumps will get sanded down to be even with the rest of the wall, and any dents will get filled with putty and allowed to harden, and then sanded even with the rest of the wall. During this walk around, stay an equal distance from the wall. Make sure your lighting is regular and even, or it will create a shadow effect where none exists. The next step is to remove dust, dirt, and residue from the walls. The best way to do this is to wipe it down with a dry cloth, and then wash the walls with soap and water, allowing them to dry completely before prepping the area for painting. The first step of prepping is to edge things. Prepping the area sets your project up for being completely successful, efficient, and will make cleanup a breeze. All hard edges, including floors, ceilings, frames of doors or windows, need to be taped. Don't skip on the type of tape either. Painter's tape exists for a reason. It creates good, clean, hard edges, and it will not bleed paint through to the surface beneath it. Make sure you cover every edge you want to preserve. Everybody thinks they can freehand something, or it'll be easier or simple or quicker. But you can't, and you don't, and it always leaves a mess. Missed areas will show up against every color and texture it spills on. Electrical outlets, hinges, and any other open surface should be covered and protected. The third step when you're painting drywall is to create a texture. Drywall doesn't suddenly become a paintable surface, and it's usually in a dark gray or green color. The easiest way to take the muggy color to stark white is to cover it and texture it first. The coolest thing since sliced bread is primer and texture. In one coat of spray paint, you can destroy the colored base and give the wall a texture. It will help cover any imperfections, and it will help the paint stick to the wall. It's important to use large, sweeping motions, stand an even distance from the wall, and keep the dispersal as even as possible. Once it's dried, the texture shouldn't be an even surface, but it should hide any flaws that were missed in the drywall. Texture takes 3 to 4 hours to dry, and if you rush it, you'll smear it, creating breaks and distortions in your flawless white walls. Evaluate your need to do a second coat based on the dispersal by checking 5 quarter-size spaces on different sections of the wall and counting the flecks of texture. If you come up with the same number of flecks, or at least within 5 or so in each one, you're good to start painting. The grand finale of painting a room is the easiest part to mess up. Double check that the texture is dry, and if not, you'll smear it and ruin the brush, and then you also have to respray the area, which adds another 3 to 4 hours of drying time to your painting. Painting with pure white color requires a complete coverage, so if you leave cracks in the coverage, any color that escaped from the drywall will permeate your entire room and it'll stand out like a sore thumb. When you're painting, use a large roller and a W-shaped motion. You will get a thin but full coverage stroke and as much as the wall as possible with the roller. Once you complete this first coat on the greater part of the wall, you'll want to move on to the edges that you've already taped. Use a smaller brush and get a small coat of paint and do all of the edge work this way. It helps lessen mistakes, and it also helps you get closer to the edge without smearing it onto whatever surface you're trying to protect. Let this dry and then do a full other coat on the rest of the wall, continuing with your large roller and that W motion. You'll be able to get the full strokes, and once you've completed the wall, you should be able to step back and admire even, blindingly white walls. With your bright, pristine walls, you'll want crisp, pristine edges. Your walls, floors, and ceilings are all hard edges, and you'll want to keep them that way. Nobody wants to see paint on their ceiling or on their floor. If you use the correct painter's tape from step 2, it should be fairly easy to remove. Pull straight out on the tape towards yourself and not at a slant. Try to keep the tape and the wall at a 90-degree angle. And if you do this correctly, you'll be able to see the clean lines emerge as you pull the tape. White colors on walls has the added benefit of making a room brighter, but it is the hardest color, or lack thereof, to paint on a wall. These guidelines are here to keep you from putting a splash of white on the floor and instead brightening your life.